Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmate. We are the group 3, and we are assigned to report the theory of Joyce Travelby. Joyce Travelby was an American psychiatric nurse born in 1926, and she is known for her work as a nursing theorist. In 1956, Joyce completed her Bachelor of Science in Nursing degree from Louisiana State University, and in 1959, she earned a Master of Science degree in nursing from Yale University. At the age of 47, Joyce enrolled for her doctoral program in Florida in 1973, but she never lived to finish it as she passed on later. That year, after the brief sickness in Southern Luzon State University College of Allied Medicine in 2008, while taking her bachelor's degree in 1952, she served as an instructor of DePaul Hospital Affiliate School in Orleans, and in this capacity, she primarily focused in psychiatric nursing. Other institutions in which Joyce taught psychiatric nursing included the University of Mississippi, New York University, and Charity Hospital of Nursing in Louisiana State University. The nurse is responsible for helping the patient avoid and alleviate the distress of unmet needs. Joyce Troubleby believes that everything the nurse as a human said or did with an ill person as a human helped to fulfill the purpose of nursing. The nurse and the patient are human beings relating to each other. The process is that of interaction. Nursing is an interpersonal connection whereby the nurse facilitates the progress of a patient, a family, and a community in preventing or coping with an illness or with suffering in ways that could lead to finding meaning with the experience. The nurse is responsible for educating and providing strategies to assist the patient in avoiding the alleviating the distress and unmet needs. It is believed the spiritual values a person holds will determine, to a great extent, his perception of illness. The spiritual values of the nurse or her philosophical beliefs about illness and suffering will determine the degree to which he or she will be able to help ill person find meaning or no meaning in these situations.
Between year 1996 and 1971, Travelby presented her human-to-human relationship theory in her book Interpersonal Aspects of Nursing. She published predominantly in the mid-1960s and died at a young age in 1973. Travelby discussed her theory with Viktor Frankl, whom she credits along with Rollo May for influencing her thinking.
Travelby's work was conceptual, and she wrote about illness, suffering, pain, hope, communication, interaction, empathy, sympathy, rapport, and therapeutic use of self. Travelby provides nursing with the criteria for connecting to ill persons. She has created a conceptual framework upon which to base therapeutic relationships with patients, families, and communities in distress or having the potential for suffering. Her definitions of the components of the meta-paradigm of nursing phenomena of interest add to the social significance and social utility of her theory. Travelby's model teaches nurses to understand or at least explore the meaning of illness and suffering in themselves. It is through this existential identification that one human being can relate to another human being.
Troubleby believed that it was important to sympathize as it was to empathize. If the nurse and the patient were to develop a human-to-human relationship, she was explicit about the patient and the nurse spiritually observing the following. Before that, what is the human-to-human relationship model? In the human-to-human relationship model, nursing is an interpersonal process whereby the nurse assists a patient or a family to prevent, cope, or experience or illness and suffering, and if necessary, to find meaning in these experiences. Troubleby believed nursing is accomplished through human-to-human relationship that you begin with the original encounter and then progress through stages of emerging identities, developing feelings of empathy, and later feelings of sympathy. This relationship can be established by an interactional process. Troubleby proposed that nursing was accomplished through 5 stages of interaction process. The first one is original encounter. The phase of original encounter is the emotional knowledge, color, impression, and perception of both nurse and patient during initial encounters. The task of this is to break the bond of categorization in order to perceive a human being in the patient and vice versa.
Emerging identities, the time when relationship of a nurse and patient perceive each other's uniqueness. By separating oneself and experiences from one another and not using oneself to criticize others.
Phase of empathy. This phase involves sharing another psychological state but standing apart and not sharing feelings. It is characterized by the ability to predict the behavior of another. The phase of sympathy. This phase demonstrates emotional involvement and discredits objectivity as dehumanizing. The task of the nurse is to translate sympathy into helpful nursing actions. Sympathy happens when the nurse wants to lessen the cause of the patient's suffering. Phase of rapport. Rapport is described as nursing interventions that lessens the patient's suffering. Relation as human being to human being. A nurse is able to establish rapport because she possesses the necessary knowledge and skills required to assist ill persons and because she is able to perceive, respond to, and appreciate the uniqueness of the ill human being. Travelby's theory extended the interpersonal relationship theories of Peplau and Orlando, and her unique synthesis of their ideas differentiated her work in terms of the therapeutic human relationship between nurse and patient. Rich 2003 revisit Travelby's argument on the value of sympathy in nursing and updated it with a reminder that compassion is central to holistic nursing care. Bunkers in 2012 examined her human relationship model to explore the meaning of presence. Travelby's work is categorized a nursing theory. Unique focus of Travelby's emphasis on caring stresses. Empathy means that you feel what a person is feeling. Let's say you meet a client who's frustrated because they went to other doctors before and didn't get help. You can show understanding and say, I cannot imagine how frustrating it can be, but it matters and I'm sorry it happened. Sympathy means you can understand what the person is feeling. For example, if someone has passed away, you may not be able to physically feel that person's pain. However, you can understand that the family of patient is sad. Rapport is defined as the ability to establish and sustain a working partnership and is considered critical to developing trust. If vulnerable patients are to trust nurses, the relationship must begin with rapport. Introducing who you are and your role on the clinical team is important for building a positive nurse-patient relationship. It shows your patient that you want them to know exactly who you are and you'll be doing to care for them. Unless your patient is asleep and you don't want to wake them up, introduce yourself in a simple way. For example, Hi Mr. Samson, my name is Shailene and I'll be your nurse for the next 8 hours. What name do you like to be called? The emotional aspects of nursing. In nurses' experiences of care, they also found experiences of emotional guilt, anger, and frustration in relation to moral conflicts. Many of these situations were patient-related and associated with acts of physical care that cross physical and social personal boundaries. The human-to-human relationship model of nursing has 7 basic concepts. They are suffering, which is an experience that varies in intensity, duration, and depth. A feeling of unease ranging from mild, transient mental, physical, or mental discomfort to to extreme pain. Meaning, which is the reason attributed to a person. The nursing. Nursing, which helps a person find meaning in the experience of illness and suffering, has a responsibility to help people and their families find meaning. And the nurse's spiritual and ethical choices and perception of illness and suffering, which are crucial to help patients find meaning. Hope. Hope, which is a faith that can and will be a change that would bring something better with it. 6 important characteristics of hope are dependence on other people, future orientation, escape routes, the desire to complete a task or have an experience, confidence and other will be there when needed, and the acknowledgement of fears and moving forward towards its goal. Communication. Communication, which is a strict necessity for good nursing care. For the self-therapy, which is the ability to use one's own personality consciously and in full awareness in an attempt to establish relatedness and to structure nursing interventions. This refers to the nurse's presence physically and psychologically. The targeted intellectual approach by the nurse toward the patient's situation.
In the 4-meta paradigm, a person is defined as a human being. Both nurse and the patient are human beings. The human being is unique, irreplaceable individual who is in continuous process of becoming, evolving, and changing.
Health. Health is subjective and objective. Subjective health is an individually defined state of well-being in accord with self-appraisal of physical, emotional, spiritual status. Objective health is an absence of discernible disease, disability of defect as measured by physical examination, laboratory tests, and assessment by spiritual director or psychological counselor.
Environment. Environment is not that clearly defined. She is just defined human conditions and life experiences encountered by all men as sufferings, hope, pain, and illness. Nursing. Nursing is an interpersonal process whereby the professional nurse practitioner assists an individual, family, or community to prevent or cope with experience or illness and suffering, and if necessary to find meaning in these experiences.